Well, as many fans know, there's going to be a new Paranormal Activity movie coming out this Friday, number 3. But some of my fans told me on a stream last night that there is another Paranormal Activity movie, Paranormal Activity 2, the Japanese Paranormal Activity called Paranormal Activity 2 Tokyo Night. And yes, I'm serious. I don't know if it's an official canonical sequel. I doubt it, or if it was sanctioned by the creators, I don't know, but probably not, because I don't think it fits in with the continuity of the story very well, but maybe. But I checked it out. It's, how do I explain this one? I'll just say this. It's not very good. It's alright. I have definitely seen way worse found footage movies, but this one is, bottom line, it's essentially a remake of Paranormal Activity 1. It hits almost every single one of the core plot points. They establish something weird is happening to the sister. The guy wants to set up a camera to get it on tape and kind of figure out what's going on, and they start developing little tests to see if there's something in the house. Things get real. She gets bitten. She gets possessed, and she kills everybody. And I know you could kind of boil down all the Paranormal Activity movies to that, but this one really does kind of follow just the set pattern of the first one, only not as well. And there's a few reasons for that, but I'll explain how in a second. The plot generally is, how does this fit in with the first Paranormal Activity? Because it does branch off from that. And the way it works is, it's in Tokyo, of course. But what happens is, there's a brother and a sister living in a house together, and their father's away on a business trip. And so the sister comes home. She comes home with broken legs. And so she's in a wheelchair, and she explains that when she was in America for, I don't know what she was doing in America, but while she was there, she was driving around during the time of the first Paranormal Activity movie, and there's going to be hardcore spoilers for this and all the Paranormal Activity movies so far, so fair warning. But when Katie in the first Paranormal Activity movie gets possessed and kills everyone in the house, what happens is, apparently she runs out of the house directly into traffic, and the Japanese girl hits her with her car, killing her, and the accident causes the Japanese girl to break both her legs. And apparently the demon that possessed Katie is so upset by this that it starts to follow her and follows her all the way back to Japan and starts the haunting process anew. So, of course, if you're a fan of the series, you'd know this makes no sense in the continuity of the story, especially since it directly contradicts what was established at the end of the first movie, where they say Katie's whereabouts are unknown. If she got greased right outside her house in the middle of the street by a Japanese student, I would think that would be fairly obvious in the context of the movie. But from there, you really have to start it. The reason I say it's not as good, it seems really claustrophobic, and not in the good way. And I guess that's because a lot of things in Japan are a little more claustrophobic. The house seems a lot smaller, and there's just not as much interesting stuff to look at. I think what really gets redundant in this movie is the fact that we only really see this, two locations. The movie spends almost all of its time in 2 locations. That is the sister's bedroom and, the kitchen/dining room area. There's so many times when we're watching them eat, or we're watching her sleep. We'll see her sleeping, creepy stuff happens. Then we cut to the dinner afterwards, where she's discussing, or he's looking at the footage and she's discussing how she doesn't want to get recorded and shit like that. There are very few locations we go to afterwards, but it really does. There's a certain amount of variety that is surprising in the American Paranormal Activity movie that is really obviously missing when you watch this one. I know a lot of the movie takes place in the bedroom in that Paranormal Activity movie, but we go a lot of other places. There's a lot of other things we see in the house, we go to the pool outside. We actually see the outside. I don't think we ever go outside in the Japanese Paranormal Activity movie until the very, very, very end. I don't think we even see, exterior windows. that whole time. And so it's very freeing to be able to go other places. In the American movie, there's scenes in the hallway, there's scenes in the attic, there's scenes in the closet, there's scenes in the bedroom, scenes at Mika's office. All these are the things, so it doesn't seem like it's all running together. Other stuff happens. It really is. It gets to be monotonous when we just go, okay, scene 1 in the bedroom, scene 1 in the dinner room, scene 1, scene 2 in the bedroom. We just kind of ping pong back and forth, and it just kind of blurs. The second thing that is, I hate to say this, but it's not as well made. The scares just, and since they're repeated from the first movie almost directly, it's just, it gets a little tedious. I don't know why you would make a sequel, because it's obvious they've seen the first one. It's obvious they love the first one. They're kind of making a direct sequel to it, but I don't know why, if that's true, they would basically repeat so many plot points from that movie. When it starts off, you just hear footsteps, and then somebody pulls the blanket off of her, and then the guy wants to make a test to see if there's anything in the room, so he doesn't set powder on the floor. What he does is he sets up a pile of salt, because it's kind of a Japanese old wives' tale that salt repels evil spirits or something like that. But it's essentially the same thing, He sets up a little pile of salt, and when they wake up, of course, it's scattered all over the floor, and there's like little footprints in there and shit. She gets pulled out of bed one time, and she's freaked out. Eventually, she gets sucked out of bed, and something bites her in the arm, and she's possessed, and then it kills her. In fact, they directly repeat the ending, the money shot, I call it, of Paranormal Activity 1, where she goes nuts and choke slams the guy right into the camera, right ass to the camera. So, there are some, and yet they do demonstrate that they have the ability to kind of do some unique things. There's one really good scare where a glass breaks. They're talking, and all of a sudden a glass just like fucking explodes right in the foreground, and it's really actually kind of intimidating. The best moment to me was when she starts to get possessed. She does this thing where she gets up and she stands over his bed and just kind of stands there for hours and hours and then leaves. It's directly like the first one, but what is really, really cool about this one is she has broken legs, as I said, so she's got both legs in casts, and so she's been wheeling around this whole time in a chair, but when the demon takes hold of her, she very slowly swings her legs over the side of the bed, and then you can see she's actually going to stand up on these shattered fucking legs, and so she very slowly, she starts to put her weight on her legs, and she falls over because her legs are completely crap, but then she gets back up, and you can see she actually does a lot of very good physical acting in this mode, and she gets up, and they dub in this really disgusting, meaty, crunching bone and flesh sound as she puts all her weight on her legs, and she starts to shamble forward, and her casts make very heavy footfalls. It's poof, poof. And it was actually kind of cool. I liked that. And then they do something that makes it kind of silly, and they do something that kind of robs it of its drama, where they do this thing where you can tell she's in this incredible amount of pain with all the gross sounds of her bones crunching, but then what they do is they do this really silly walk. She starts, because obviously her legs are broken, but she starts to walk really goofily, and I know what they're trying to do, but it doesn't come across as really spooky. She comes across as walking really stupid. She kind of does, I gotta back the camera up, but she kind of does this thing where she's got cast, hang on, let me lower the camera. She kind of does this thing where she puts her knees together and she walks like this. So she's kind of I don't know. It's kind of funny how she does it, and it's like a 5-minute scene where she's kind of thumping around the house and doing this, and I'm just kind of going, really, but it is a little more localized. I mean, obviously there's more Japanese kind of folklore involved in here, where they basically hire a Shinto priest to do a cleansing ceremony, which is a lot like when they talk to the demonologist. They almost repeat the exact same demonologist scene in this movie, where basically one of her friends is psychic, and she invites the friend over, and she gets violently ill from the spirit in the house, and so she runs off saying, "You're all gonna die," and she runs off. Once again, this is a movie where they don't specifically mention. You wonder why they don't get out of the house, and I know in the first Paranormal Activity movie they say like there's no point in leaving the house because it's haunting her, not the house. But they never get to that point in this movie, so they have no way of knowing that. So I don't know why they never leave this fucking house. At least never give it a try, you know. So and it reaches a point where the guy just is completely impotent and powerless and just does nothing. All he does is, like, even when it's obvious there's, like, really dangerous shit going down, he just, like, brings her food and then leaves the room and then goes to sleep. Like, nothing's wrong, you know? You just think that he'd invite friends over or just do something. And all he does in this movie is when it's really obvious she's been bitten. Like, they copy the scene where... She gets out of bed and she goes outside and she just kind of sits in the chair in a really catatonic state, and he goes outside and finds her in the cold and she's kind of like delirious and he leads her inside. They copy that scene, and then it's really obvious she's got a huge demon bite mark on her arm. So what does he do when he takes her to bed and then he goes out and gets her a crucifix? He doesn't think of taking her to the emergency room for the enormous 7-inch infected demon bite on her arm. Oh no, the crucifix is clearly a solution here. Maybe I'm just a little more scientifically minded. I'm not Shinto. I'm just. By the way, either they're Shinto or like, but the crucifix kind of goes against. I don't know. I'm talking out my ass now, but what's funny is probably the biggest change is the ending. As I said, they rip off the money shot where he flies ass first into the camera and is killed. So they do that. He flies into the camera, and you see the girl kind of like do the crawl towards the camera. But then all of a sudden the guy gets up. He's like, and he actually survives this. And so he gets up and he runs away from her. And he runs out into the street and he's running. He's like, help me, oh God, help me. He runs out of the street. He flags down like a taxi and gets in the car and just goes, fucking drive. So the guy drives, rounds the corner, and immediately hits the sister who's crossing the street. And so then they cut to like a surveillance camera of the morgue. And there's a doctor who brings the brother in and is like, you need to identify the body. And so he goes in there and he pulls the sheet back, and you know there's going to be some kind of scare. So like as soon as he pulls the sheet back, you hear the little demonic rumbling sound, and he gets pulled off camera, and then they go to credits. And then they cut back from the credits, and you see the girl who's still alive, and she kind of does that knock-kneed walk towards the camera. And then what's the most disappointing thing is, I know I keep harping on this when it comes to J-horror, but they turn her into the Grudge. She shambles towards the camera, and of course she's got the hair right over her face, so that you can only see one eye, like the hair that drapes over her face. She's wearing like a white dress, and she's kind of like slowly shambling. Then she's got the one eye, and she looks into the camera, her eye rolls back, and she goes, and then it cuts to finally credits. I was really disappointed in that. I just don't know why. Why the fuck did they do this all the fucking time? Almost every J-horror I've seen, even the good ones, starting with The Grudge, it must be because of The Grudge being so popular, involves kind of a croaking teenage/preteen girl with the hair draping over her face. That must be the scariest fucking thing in Japanese folklore, is a girl with hair draping over her face, because almost every fucking movie, you get, I can't even think of them. There's been so many Grudge movies, but there's been a ton of them. Even the ones I kind of like I think, it's not One Missed Call, but there's another one where there's like a demonic cell phone that kills you. I can't remember what it is. But, what?
One Missed Call.
No, not that one. It's a different one. It's a different one with the demonic cell phone. But I've seen so many where there's the girls with the hair over her face. And I was like, damn it, don't turn her into the Grudge. It's not that. Fuck. So, would I recommend seeing this if you're a Paranormal Activity fan? Not really. I really think all this movie is kind of supposed to be is just kind of a Japanese localization of the first Paranormal Activity. But I don't know why they call it PA2. I really don't get it, because it's almost shot for shot, except for some things that are removed. You know, they do the thing where the ghost punches out photos, and like there's a photo on the wall, and the ghost breaks the glass over her face, and he's like, "Oh my God, the demon doesn't like you," or something like that. And, you know, but almost point for point, and you can't really say that about Paranormal Activity 2 because there is a lot different in that movie. The premise is the same, but they do a lot different. You know, there's more people. They take a different route to investigate it. You know, it ties into the plot. It actually advances the storyline. Whereas this one is just there's a ghost and it kills people. So that's Paranormal Activity 2 Tokyo Night. I don't know where you can find this commercially. Basically, I got a bootleg, but I got it. It's not kind of sort of bootleg. I have a region-free DVD player, so I got it so it works. Mainly, it was the subtitles that were bootleg. The movie was legit, but the subtitles were bootleg, and the subtitles were not great. So maybe if you had a better translation, maybe they explained the story a little better. But I just found it to be really, really redundant. And even if you're not a found footage fan, this ain't gonna convert you. I would really just suggest sticking with the core group. I would be interested to see if anyone signed off on this, or if this is a what's the word, authorized sequel to Paranormal Activity. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys.